Kelly, thanks for joining me. I've just spoken on the show about the release of American-Israeli hostage Eden Alexander. How much of a success is this being seen as for the Trump administration?
Hi, Caroline. Really happy to be here. Well, it's being seen as a huge success, and even his family has thanked President Trump and said that they believe he would still be in captivity if it were not for President Trump's efforts. And remember, he'd been in captivity for 583 days. He'd been shackled, put in a cage, beaten and interrogated. He was an IDF soldier, so he really went through a grueling experience. And we're all very happy he's out, and we're anxiously awaiting here in America for him to be able to return to New Jersey, which he hopes to do very soon.
That will be a wonderful moment when that happens, and it is fantastic news. But there have been some aspects of Trump's trip to the Middle East that have been seen as questionable. I guess Trump's meeting with Syria's new leader, Ahmad al-Sharaa, a former al-Qaeda commander, the acceptance of this gift of a jet from Qatar. What do you make of all of these incidents?
Well, as you mentioned, Caroline, there was also going to be, apparently, there were rumors at least, a trip to Doha for Eden Alexander, which, as you noted, he's being paraded around and, in a place that gives, help to Hamas, Qatar, of course. So he decided, though, he doesn't want to do that, and thank goodness they respected his wishes. That would have been really, I think, just an ugly scene. Whoever's idea that was, this was a terrible idea, and so that's just one of the things that didn't happen, at least on Donald Trump's Middle Eastern trip. But yeah, it's been a mixed bag. He's gotten quite a bit done for America, signed a lot of deals, investments. And the great thing, of course, is encouraging out loud, right in front of everybody, these leaders to recognize Israel. But at the same time, yes, he shook hands and with a former al-Qaeda operative and took, sanctions off Syria. And there's a lot of questions about what kind of government is going to happen there and what they are going to do going forward. Assad, obviously an evil man, but that doesn't necessarily mean anybody replacing him is going to be a lot better. We're going to have to wait and see. But this is Trump's style of diplomacy. It's very uncomfortable for a lot of people to see him shaking hands with, basically dictators like MBS in Saudi Arabia. But he sees that sort of glad handling as a way to get what he wants out of these people. And we'll see if it works. I mean, he made some deals, but will they go any further on normalizing relations with Israel? That's a huge question, which, of course, those October 7th attacks in which they took Eden Alexander and many other people hostage set back that normalization plan.
Well, look, it will be fascinating to watch, and I guess other diplomacy methods haven't worked, so we will wait and see if it all pays off. Meanwhile, Hamas says it's in direct talks with the Trump administration to achieve peace within the region. The militant group is encouraging the U.S. to put pressure on Israel. U.S. President Donald Trump is, of course, in the Middle East, as we've been talking about, and has set to work on negotiations between the two sides. And he's outlined his thoughts on what needs to be achieved.
Well, we're working very hard on Gaza, and Gaza has been a territory of death and destruction. The United States get involved and make it just a freedom zone, have a real freedom zone, put people in homes where they can be safe, and Hamas is going to have to be dealt with.
Kelly, we've already talked about, whether this will lead to peace, these efforts. A senior Hamas official has praised Trump, claiming he is the correct person to be leading the peace talks. Do you personally think that he may be able to get this over the line?
I mean, that is going to be a huge lift, Caroline, one of the biggest lifts really in the world right now. But of course, Trump made huge inroads in the last election amongst Muslim Americans and Arab Americans. He certainly has already delivered more in some ways than President Biden. But listen, he says Hamas has to be dealt with. There's a lot There's a lot in just those two words dealt with. And in this interview, of course, the Hamas official, still claims that Gaza is occupied. It's not occupied. Israel has withdrawn. Israel withdrew in 2005, and he said that while they're still occupied, they have a right to resist, which to them means killing innocent people, as we saw on October 7th in that massacre. So this is going to be very tough. I think rest of the Middle East, the leaders, I think, understand that the Palestinian problem is a problem, and it's not something that they want to support anymore. I mean, notice none of these countries are taking in Gazan refugees, but they know that the people in their countries feel differently. So this is a huge problem. And, I will say the one positive thing that Hamas official says is that they are willing to give up the government if that's what it takes. Now, the problem is, of course, we know that I don't know how accurate polling is in that part of the world, of course, but the population does seem to still support Hamas. And in fact, some of that support went up after October 7th. So even if you get a new group leading the government, is it going to be any different? Are they going to be any more peaceful and more willing to let Israel exist than Hamas?
Yeah, you raised some really great points there, Kelly. A majority support still in Gaza for Hamas. It's going to be very difficult to change the hearts and minds of people there. Look, let's move now to the Democratic Party, where former Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg has indicated that he would assess a potential 2028 presidential run and consider what I bring to the table and how it's different. Those were his words. Kelly, do you think this would be a good move for the Democrats?
It would be a good move for Republicans if Pete Buttigieg ran in 2028. People recently, pointed to this New Yorker profile of Mayor Pete, as he's known, when he was transportation secretary. And it was quite hilarious. It was a very fawning profile. And it said that, Mayor Pete didn't need to really use much of his brain power as transportation secretary, so he could spend a lot of time thinking about philosophy and other activities. Well, the transportation system is in a mess right now. Air traffic control. Just this week we saw Denver. I believe it was on Monday. Was out of touch with about 20 pilots for 6 minutes. Air traffic control. Newark is a complete mess, one of the airports New Yorkers use. So he certainly did not do a good job as transportation secretary. I don't know what possible accomplishments he's going to point to. So that's going to be a difficult one. But, he is a younger face, a slightly fresher face than, Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, and a lot of these other people. But he's going to have stiff competition, of course, with Gavin Newsom. And, Kamala Harris may try again, although she's not really popular amongst a lot of Democrats right now, as you can imagine, Caroline.
It's not exactly a crowded field that the Democrats have as an option right now. I mean, they're in a bit of a precarious position. On one hand, as you point out, they have these older heads like Chuck Schumer and Bernie Sanders, and they have this younger brigade in Buttigieg and also Jasmine Crockett. I mean, where do you see the party heading in terms of their leadership?
Well, if they're smart, they will, look to younger people, but not, like AOC, who is doing the Fighting Oligarchy tour right now with Bernie Sanders. I mean, she is Bernie Sanders, except, younger and much better looking. The same old socialist ideas that have been proven time and time again to cause more harm than help. So if they're smart, they'll look to some more moderate faces. And Gavin Newsom is doing his best. He's done a lot of flip-flops, reversing on issues, even backing down on the trans issue, which is sort of a huge thing for Democrats. Yet, no Democrat in the House voted for the bill that the Republicans passed that would ban, biological males from female sports. So not a single Democrat. So you kind of wonder, where's the party headed? They don't seem to have learned a lot from what happened in 2024 in November.
Kelly Jane Torrance, so great speaking to you. Thanks for coming on.